I was snapped out of my body, end up in this vivid, bright blue and white tunnel filled with ones and zeros. And I'm going through it at supersonic speed in the spiritual body. And I'm being downloaded with this binary code and information. In this blackness, binary code came and circulated through my head and my heart and actually healed me of the myoclonus dystonia. And in this space was the creator, the God, the source. And it was just pure love. There was no hatred, there was no judgment, there was just pure love. This beautiful scroll, as big as I was, in front of me, with starting to have beautiful, sparkly golden script written on it. And that's when my human ego showed up and said, "Ha, you're showing this to a human." And just like that, the script went away, the scroll rolled up. Hi, my name is Brianna Lafferty, and I had a near-death experience in 2017. Leading up to it, during, and after has made huge impacts on my life. When I was a kid, things started getting a little weird when I was 10. I started coming down with some weird symptoms. It'd start with just weird arm flutters and cramping of my arms and my legs, and then it moved to twitching on the other side and my neck, and then my full body was twitching. And then I would start tremoring, and then I started not being able to sleep, and things just kept progressing. So we finally decided to try to see a doctor and see what was going on. And the first doctor, I think, came pretty close to diagnosing me, but unfortunately, we saw him once and he left office. And this is over the course of about 4 years of my condition getting worse. And during that time, I'd also experienced paranormal activity in my house, as well as metaphysical gifts that I wasn't quite sure about, because I grew up in a Christian home, and our church kind of said, you're not supposed to have these gifts, or of the devil, and if you're saved, nothing could touch you. The illness kept progressing, where I started also having nerve pain, coming down with OCD, anxiety. This also caused a lot of depression, and we still had no answers. And we were seeing more and more specialists with less and less answers. The more tests that came back negative, the more depressed I got and the more hopeless. And my church said if I just prayed hard enough and I believed hard enough, and if my heart was good enough, God would heal me. And so, I tried turning to the faith, and I tried praying really hard. We had prayer circles. Then I tried begging, I tried pleading. I would say, God, if you heal me, I will be the perfect person. And when that didn't work, I got angry. I've been trying to get answers for at least 6 or 8 years at this point. And I finally was diagnosed with myoclonus dystonia, a neurological movement disorder. It is a very, very rare neurological movement disorder. Even as of August 2024, when I last looked it up, estimated to be less than 1 in 1 million people who had this condition. At the time of my diagnosis, there was one single page on the internet about myoclonus dystonia, and I was at this very reputable hospital that diagnosed me. They said they had just heard about it. None of her or her colleagues had even seen a case, and they really didn't know how to go about treating me. So even though I had an answer, I had no solution. And I just kind of tried to go on living my life, even though my symptoms continued to increase. I had non-epileptic myoclonic seizures that interfered with my life quite often. The pain was very immense. The OCD was pretty crazy. And then, of course, I'm still experiencing paranormal stuff that also ramped up. By the time I was 25, I was exhausted. Even by the time I was 15, I had this inherent knowledge that I was going to die before I reached the age of 28. So I made the decision to sell my house and move 1,400 miles away to basically go die. I didn't know how I was going to die, and I didn't know when, but I knew it was coming, so I just wanted to live in peace. But the night of April 27th, 2017, it all came crashing down. So the mom who was still researching things and looking into cures and possibilities and trying to connect this paranormal with my illness decided to hire a spirit release therapist. And I was warned you could get a little sick, but I had no idea how sick I would become. I came down with what was like a tremendous flu, where for weeks I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink anything. I was vomiting, I was basically glued to the bathroom, and it was really starting to wear on my mental state and my physical state as well, because I'm already an insomniac, not sleeping for days at a time. My body's hurt, it's constantly moving. And after weeks of just being beat up, worse and worse and worse, I had nothing left to give. So, in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., I was on the phone with my mom, and I told her I needed to try to get some sleep, even though I knew that wasn't going to happen. So, I told her goodnight. I hung up the phone, and with every ounce of me, I surrendered. I gave up with my body, my heart, my mind, and my soul. Every ounce of me, every atom, everything that made me, physically, consciously, and spiritually, had just been exhausted and depleted. So at that time, I gave up, and I heard this big, booming voice ask if I was ready. And as soon as I had given up, I felt this huge wave of serenity. And so when I heard this question, I didn't hesitate to say yes. I didn't even think about what I was saying yes to. And as soon as I thought yes, I was snapped out of my body and completely unaware of this form called Bree, this realm called Earth, or this thing called humanity. I ended up a spiritual being in this beautiful blackness. And this blackness wasn't empty. It was full of absolutely every energy, everything, every possibility. And in this space was the creator, the God, the source, the being that rescued me in my time of desperation. And it was just pure love. There was no hatred, there was no judgment, there was just pure love. And my consciousness asked if something had changed, or knew something had changed, and asked, "Am I dead?" Just like that, out of the blackness, three monks appear, and they just kind of smile and float on by, smiling, laughing, and didn't say anything. I said, that's curious. As they float back into the darkness, I end up in this vivid, bright blue and white tunnel filled with ones and zeros, and I'm going through it at supersonic speed in the spiritual body, and I'm being downloaded with this binary code and information. I wasn't sure what the information was, but I knew it would be important and come to me when I needed it. After that, I end up in a white room, and behind me, a ascended master teacher. In front of me, this huge pile of black numbers. And the only time in my experience I had a human-like body, and I remember picking up this group, like, huge pile of numbers, throwing them up in the air and exclaiming, "No wonder you love creating," because I realized that the universe was created in math, and I thought that was so exciting. I then moved to another place of my experience, and this place had other beings, and I don't know if they're ever been human. I don't know where they came from. We all had similar bodies, but none that I'd ever really seen before. And this was a place kind of reminiscent of Earth. There were stores and utility poles and roads and sky and ground and trees. And I remember sliding down the trees covered in moss because I saw other beings sliding down trees covered in snow. And I didn't think I liked snow, so my trees were green. And I realized, oh, my trees are green because this is the experience I want. But because they might like snow, they might be experiencing their snow, and I get to experience my green, but we're doing this simultaneously together. And it was really cool, really exciting. There's another time I tried to learn how to fly. I was terrible at it. I severed my arm, but there was no pain. There was no fear, it was just curiosity. And I just kind of wondered what would happen. And I watched it grow back with binary code. And these other beings and I communicated faster than telepathy. I mean, as soon as I had a thought, it was known. It was at one point I melted in front of a machine that they were working on that had a flame. Once again, no pain, no fear. I was just a puddle of eyeballs, and I thought, I wonder if anyone will put me back together. Sure enough, instantly, beings put me back together. At one point, we all danced as if we had danced this choreographed dance that we'd been practicing for millennia. No one said a word. We just all knew how to move together. And it was absolutely beautiful. It was unity, it was oneness, it was wholeness. But yet we were all so much individualized. So just because we communicated and moved as one did not take away at all from our individuality. Towards the end of that part of the experience, some of the beings were going through an opening in a barbed wire fence that I couldn't see beyond. It was blurry, and I just knew I couldn't go with them. I was never asked if I could go. I was never told I couldn't go. I just knew I couldn't go with them. And as I'm watching them go, I end up in the last place of my NDE. And it's this dark, tinier room with 7 magnificent beings behind me. And this beautiful scroll, as big as I was, in front of me, with starting to have beautiful, sparkly golden script written on it. And I just knew it was some wonders of the world, the universe, some crazy knowledge. And that's when my human ego showed up and said, "Ha, you're showing this to a human." And just like that, the script went away, the scroll rolled up, and I was snapped back into my body. The time after I came back was not easy at first. I was very confused. At first, I thought I'd been dead for months, and I'd have to figure out how to dig myself out of a coffin. Like, I was just adamant that I died for months or weeks at least. And when I finally got the courage to open my eyes after pleading and begging to go back and slowing my breath and trying to meditate and all, just everything I could to go back to the space, I finally opened my eyes, and it had only been 8 minutes later. It was so much more real than this experience that I've had in the earth for, at this point, 25 years. I also felt like I'd been stuffed into a sausage casing. I was this expansive being, now just really constrained into this physical suit. And everything was so solid, and time didn't make sense. I came back being able to hear people's thoughts, feel people's pains, even hear plants. And it was really hard. It was actually very traumatic for the first 6 months. And I wanted to do anything to get back home. And after trying to go back home, I landed myself in a 4-day coma with a traumatic brain injury. I didn't get another NDE. I didn't get another taste of it, and I wasn't allowed to go back. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to make the most of living here. Once I got better, I went back to my old career. I also started volunteering for hospice, and being able to authentically hold that energy of excitement for people transitioning to the other side without having to tell my story or why I was excited or genuinely, authentically happy for them was just an absolutely healing experience for me. And I hope for a lot of the clients I helped transition over. And I did that for a few years and still hadn't come to terms with my NDE. It wasn't until I finally had brain surgery for the myoclonus dystonia in 2022 and stepped away from my career. I said goodbye to this whole career I'd been working up for, and I'd climbed the ladder despite all of these challenges, and I had finally accepted my NDE at this point, but I didn't know what to do about it. So while I was healing from brain surgery, I went deep diving. I went on the spiritual quest to figure out what it was all about, what it all meant. And I went to my first meditation retreat, and I got back into this blackness, and it was absolutely incredible. And in this blackness, binary code came and circulated through my head and my heart and actually healed me of the myoclonus dystonia I had been ill with for 22 years. Since then, there's been so many amazing different revelations. One, we are absolutely powerful. The creator is within, God is within, the kingdom is within. So I was able to meditate to get back to the place of my NDE, where there is all possibilities and everything that exists. We are taught out of these beautiful gifts that we have. We are born with intuition and healing abilities. We can heal ourselves, we can heal the world, we can turn it into something beautiful. And so everything has been structured and designed to keep us away from that. Our educational systems, our government systems, even our religious systems, and our culture itself. A huge passion of mine is helping people reconnect with their spiritually authentic self to create whatever they want to create in this life. This life is also more of a simulation or of a matrix, and we absolutely can manipulate and change it. It may take time because our thoughts and energies are high frequency and matter is very low frequency, and it can take time to slow that down and make it a reality. But you focus long enough, hard enough, powerfully enough, and it will happen. I've also found that, a lot of people struggle with their sense of purpose. But once again, that's because we have kind of been sold this lie of hypnotism. You work hard, you have a family, then you get retired and you enjoy your family. And people are depleted and they're unsatisfied. The money doesn't make them happy, the career doesn't make them happy, and their soul is not being fed that purpose. And I found through helping probably hundreds of clients at this point that a lot of our purposes actually come through our pain. So the pain and the traumas we experience often become our purpose in life. As far as how it's changed my life in more than just my beliefs and this just complete knowing of the beyond and the afterlife and the power we have within, it's also changed my outlook. I've never been more grateful, even if I come down with new illnesses and new conditions or, life gets tough. I suffer happily. I suffer gratefully because I suffered for so long with no signs of hope. And, sometimes people would say, oh, there's a reason for it. But you suffer for 22 years with no end in sight. And you're like, no, there's not. What did I do to deserve this? What kind of horrible person am I? What did I do in a past life? I tried to explore all of that. But after having my NDE and the healing at the meditation retreat, and since digging into more of what my NDE meant, especially with how it works in this world and how this world works, I definitely have this grateful heart, and I know that whatever I'm going through, I can look back eventually and see exactly what it was all for. So even though I might not see it now, I practice patience because I know the picture will become clear and it'll be for a big reason and a big purpose. Living with a grateful heart has helped tremendously. I'm no longer angry at my circumstances, and I've realized I can't control my external environment, but I can absolutely control my mental and my heart environment. And I believe that has been absolutely huge and monumental to make me who I am today. We are all connected. We are all searching for purpose. We're all searching for meaning. But the most important thing I think you can get away from this is just how powerful you are if you just learn how to tap into yourself.